episode 466 of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. I'll be talking about tonight's episodes of WWE NXT and the season finale of Dark Side of the Ring. Right here, right now, 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Welcome, Wrestling Fanatics, to episode 466 of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. I am Lance Brock, your host. As always, once again, thank you for tuning in tonight. And tonight on this Tuesday episode, as usual, got an episode of WWE NXT to talk about, and tonight's season finale of Dark Side of the Ring, The World According to Marty Jannetty, which I thought was definitely pretty interesting, just as I thought it would. Kind of out there, I guess you could say, but I will get to that in just a little bit, because first we are talking NXT, which was tonight. Our commentators, Vic Joseph and Booker T. And tonight we have Mustafa Ali taking on Axiom. And Ali gets the win here in this one. We saw Reggie at rings, or what they call now, scripts, now they call them, at ringside. And Blair Davenport defeated Kalani Jordan with Dana Brooke in her corner. And Tyler Bate defeats Noam Dar in a NXT Heritage Cup Championship rules match. And Braun Breaker defeats Von Wagner with Robert Stone. And then after the match, Breaker goes to attack Stone, and then Wagner makes the save, power bombs him through the table. And next up, Drew Gulak and Charlie Dempsey defeat Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs. Kiana James defeated Ivy Nile. And in the main event of tonight's NXT for the NXT North American Championship, Dirty Dom Dominic Mysterio with Mommy Rhea Ripley defending against Dragon Lee with Dominic's father, or as he says, deadbeat dad, Rey Mysterio, in the corner of Dragon Lee. I thought this was a pretty good match. And the finish sees Rhea Ripley throw in the North American Championship to Dominic, and then Rey takes that from him, and then Rhea brings in her World Women's Championship, allowing Dominic to pick up the win. So that was tonight's NXT. I thought it was an okay show. I did enjoy the main event. The rest of it wasn't too bad. And there was also a scene backstage, Ray talking to some of the talent backstage. And overall, I know I didn't rate each match, but overall I'd say probably 7.5 out of 10 ring bells. Just doing the overall rating for tonight. And next up, head over to Vice for tonight's season finale of season 4 of Dark Side of the Ring. And it is the world according to Marty Jannetty. And I've been talking lately that how when I first saw the episodes of this season that would be airing, this was one of the ones I was looking forward to the most, because I knew this one was going to be definitely maybe one of the most interesting and maybe the most strangest episodes of the season, because that's probably why they saved it for the finale. But it definitely was, and there were some of the ones interviewed in this one were Al Snow, who of course, when they kind of tried to bring back the Rockers as the new Rockers, they had him teaming with Marty Jannetty as Leif Cassidy. Also, Brutus the Barber Beefcake was interviewed, which made sense, because definitely one of the most, in my opinion anyway, one of the most famous moments in WWF history. I remember watching when I was 8 years old, the barber shop, and at the time the Rockers were having some problems, and they were kind of teasing a breakup. But then that was when Marty turned his back on Shawn, and then Shawn turned him around and shook his hand, and for a second it looked like everything was going to be alright. The Rockers were going to be continuing as a tag team, which I was happy, because at the time the Rockers were definitely one of my favorite tag teams at the time. And then all of a sudden, boom, Shawn Michaels hits him with a super kick and throws him through the barber shop window, which is probably one of the most famous clips in WWF/WWE history. They've definitely used that a lot. And of course they talked to others, and another one was Pat Tanaka, who worked with the Rockers early on as a part of Bad Company, and also a friend of his. She talked quite a bit about how a lot of times, or a lot of things that Marty says are mostly not true, and first talks about early on in his career, when he first gets into the business, and then when he first meets Shawn, kind of takes him under his wing, and then they become the Midnight Rockers, and then they actually went to WWF and weren't there very long, and because they were causing trouble and stuff, out partying, and they ended up getting fired, and then went to Continental Wrestling, I believe, and had a real bloody match that's pretty famous now, and that got Vince's attention again, so he brought him back. And of course they talk about when their most famous run as the Rockers, and then he talks about Marty Jannetty, talks about how Vince had him in their office, and he is talking about breaking him up. And first, Jannetty says that he has to talk about with Shawn, but then Shawn hurried up and spoke up that he was all for it. And, of course, Shawn Michaels went on to have a huge Hall of Fame career. And then Marty kind of struggled. And then they talked about how, of course, the New Rockers, and I thought Al Snow was really good in this. And Brutus Beefcake and his wife, who was there with them for the interview too, were very good, I thought. And talked about a lot of the trouble he got in at the time with drugs and alcohol. Talked about how he left at one time, went to WCW for a little bit. And they even cover the one time in 2005, I believe it was, when they had the one night Rockers reunion on Raw. And they said since he looked so good in that one match with Shawn Michaels teaming together, that they actually offered him a contract from that. But then a week later he was arrested, so that did not work out. And then talked about a lot of the crazy stuff he's been talking about on Facebook and stuff lately. And then they talk about how just like a year or two so ago, he talked about how he killed a man when he was younger, and then he said he didn't. He said it was a wrestling storyline. But then they, with the interviews with Al Snow, Brutus Beefcake, and even his one friend, I don't remember her name right now, but she even says that is, even though earlier she said most of the stuff that he says and talks about isn't true, she says that is one thing that she actually does believe that is true because of the way he told her, and she can tell when something he's saying is true or is a lie. So, don't know what to say about that. And then so that's the episode of The World According to Marty Jannetty, Dark Side of the Ring, the season finale of season 4. And I thought this, like I said, definitely a very interesting episode tonight. And overall, as a whole season, I thought this one was actually pretty good. Enjoyed quite a few episodes of this one. Some of them were really dark, especially like the Doink the Clown one, or Matt Bourne, more focused on him. And then also the Magnum TA one, the Junkyard Dog episode, the one about the Graham family, and last week's Bash at the Beach 2000, which also was kind of crazy. You mostly had Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff kind of going back and forth at each other there. But I definitely do hope there is a 5th season of Dark Side of the Ring. I'm not too sure what's going on with Vice now after that whole bankruptcy thing not too long ago, but hopefully there will be a 5th season. I definitely would like to see it. Also, before I wrap up the podcast, to get into some quick news, it's been announced that at Impact's and New Japan's Multiverse United 2, for whom the bell tolls, Sami Callihan will be taking Doku. And as expected, last Saturday night, Collision's ratings did take a big hit, going up against SummerSlam, which, like I said, that wasn't a surprise at all, but I'm not sure yet if the DVR numbers have been released just yet, because I'm sure those will probably do pretty good with that main event, CM Punk versus Ricky Starks, with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat being involved. Probably got a lot of people to record it, even though they were watching SummerSlam live, I would say. And that is about it for the news tonight. And hope to be back tomorrow night for an episode recapping Dynamite. But first, we'll be here tomorrow morning for the Wednesday episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans, and we'll recap, or preview, I should say, tomorrow's episode of Dynamite. And remember, if you have any questions or comments, or you can leave feedback on tonight's episodes of NXT and Dark Side of the Ring in the comments section, either here on Spreaker, YouTube, or whichever podcast app you listen to 360 Wrestling Podcast on. And that's all for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow morning for Good Morning Wrestling Fans, so make sure you tune in then. But for now, I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.